Hello, I have with me here Rana from the Shlama Foundation. She's been working extensively for the past couple years about the situation of in Iraq, and she's with us today to talk a little bit about what they do and give us an update about what Christians are facing in the region. Thank you, Rana, for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah, for having us.
Great. So let's get right into it. Can you give us a little bit of an update about what Christians are feeling with the current climate right now, and and then we'll go forward and talk about what you guys do.
Yeah, I can do that. So right now, as most people know, there have been heavy protests around the central government in Iraq and Baghdad. Our organization is primarily focused in northern Iraq, so we haven't been in the midst of it. However, our people are really hoping that something good will come out of it. The biggest thing is that minorities get more representation and rights in the government. And that's not just the Christians, the Yazidis as well, everybody that's underrepresented. That's something that we're really hoping will come out of this. But we're really not too active as an organization in the political sphere. We're just mostly focused on our work.
Okay, that's very informative. So like you were saying, a lot of the work you're doing is apolitical, but it does, go hand in hand with the situation. So I understand that your organization was formed a little bit post ISIS or during ISIS. Can you give us kind of a background about like why organizations such as yourselves had to be active, and how like what's the groundwork of how you guys started?
So it all started when ISIS forced evacuated Mosul. Pretty much anybody that didn't adhere to their ideology had to leave. And it was a very short notice. People left with whatever they could carry. And they went north and east, a lot of them, into surrounding villages, like little villages. And these villages already were not receiving enough resources from the central government. They didn't have trash pickup for weeks. So our thought was initially, let's go in there and let's support these villages to be able to support this influx of people. And before we even started our first project, ISIS had advanced further. And so our initial plan completely went away. And the vast majority of everybody in the Nineveh Plains plus Mosul was now homeless. They were living in the Kurdish region in Erbil and Dahok, and as far away as they could get from the areas that were taken by ISIS. So we started doing only emergency response at that time. So it was things that people urgently needed for survival, life-saving medications, food, aid to large groups. People were clustered around maybe their churches or their villages. And so we were just doing, somebody needed, their eyeglasses broke while they were running, like random things, whatever people needed. We had just people on the ground walking around and figuring out what was essential. Then we began to become more organized. People started to settle into their displacement. So we started doing a little bit more things that were focused on education, whatever we could do to help people what they were losing from living displaced.
Like stabilize. You were looking to stabilize, kind of?
Yes. And after we achieved a little bit of stabilization, not Shlama, the whole country, we started to do something that was very unusual for the people there. We decided to rebuild a community center. And everybody thought we were a little crazy. They're like, how are you rebuilding right now? ISIS will just come and destroy it.
Exactly.
And we were like, we were like, what are we going to do? Just never move forward. We just sit here, So we went and there was this community center that was central to 5 villages. So we worked with, it was owned by a church, and they told us, this priest said, I've always had this dream of making it a place where young people can come and learn and have a whole bunch of resources and opportunities here. So we rebuilt it, and we noticed something really amazing that really affected the way things happened after that. There was a domino effect. So when we fixed that community center, a nearby school opened up about halfway through our project, and other people began to have a little bit of hope. So they started doing some of their own rebuilding and fixing up on their own in different areas. And other organizations saw, we have to do these things eventually, So things started improving little by little. people were still displaced, so there wasn't that much we can do.
course.
Fast forward a couple more years, most people have moved back out of displacement that were living in Erbil and Dahok. Unfortunately, most of the Yazidis have still not moved back. They're still living in displacement camps. But now we've been able to do bigger projects, much bigger projects, like fully rebuilding villages. And now there's so many more organizations out there too that we're able to partner with, like USAID, an American organization. And one of the biggest projects we're working on right now, I did a lot of fast forwards there, is we're doing a solar project. Iraq has a lot of sunlight hours comparable to California. So solar is the way to go. Government electricity is terrible. It's interrupted, and everybody that lives in Iraq just deals with it regularly.
Yes.
So it's really exciting.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So we're really excited about that, and just looking actually for more ideas to do more big things that are going to rebuild and redevelop and create more opportunities and investment and things like that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for the overview. So that's the projects you're working on right now. Can you tell us a little bit about where exactly the big projects are happening right now? Are you looking to expand in regards to your locations, or what's going forward? What's your plan?
So we are primarily focused in the Nineveh Plains and surrounding areas. We have expanded recently to northeast Syria. We did our first couple of projects there. And then we did a few in Baghdad.
Okay.
Excuse me, but we really have not expanded that much outside of that area. The work is
a lot of work to do.
I was just gonna say that the work is just way too great. Like, it's gonna be a long time before we reach a point of great development. You know, before we reach the point where we're done repairing to the point that we can create new things. Even though we're doing that concurrently, you know, we're doing new things like solar power, but we're also fixing destruction at the same time. So I don't know. It's a lot of work. It's overwhelming, but you just got to keep doing it. Keep moving forward.
I have a quick question to ask you. So I know that you've been working for a couple of years now. Did you have any point in time where ISIS came back to a certain region that you had worked at, or is that a regular occurrence? Or can you talk a little bit about that? A lot of people didn't know that.
We're very careful about moving forward, and we monitor American reports and other worldwide reports about what's expected before we make decisions. For example, our first trip wasn't until last year. Like, our volunteer trip wasn't until last year. People have gone as individuals, but not as groups, because we waited until we felt absolutely comfortable. Many people had gone before we decided to go, you know? So we're very careful. We have gone into areas to help people, but not rebuilding. We've gone in to help people, and then ISIS came and people went back. And then we went in to help them and people went back. That happened many times, especially in that first year when people started moving back. Yeah, it was back and forth.
And that it has like gone back and forth between the areas they've controlled and not controlled. So it's good to know that the big projects are to the safer areas, I guess, the more dominantly without ISIS. Okay, great. Is there anything you wanted to add about what you guys do? I know we wanted to talk a little bit about the general feel of what the Christians are going through, but I think we covered that. But is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I'm just very proud of all the organizations that are working there now. All the cooperation, just all the focus. There's so many obstacles there. There are so many continuous obstacles and different ones that arise all the time, and people just keep working. And I think that's really amazing. I personally plan to do this probably for the rest of my life. So it's nice to see other people that are committed, and partnering together is really important. Working together is really important. And dialogue is extremely important. There's a lot of bad history there between populations, like very, very bad history. And there's not enough dialogue. So that's something that's going to take a very long time to repair. It requires a lot of sensitivity. I respect and appreciate all the work IDC does for advocacy. We know what you guys are doing, and it's been very helpful, and the impact is visible. So all the advocacy that happens in Washington is so important. We're like a smaller funded organization, and we can't afford to send people there and to do that kind of advocacy all the time. We do once in a while. So to have people there that are devoted to advocating for people that are persecuted in the Middle East is just, I can't express enough gratitude, honestly. And I know everyone is grateful that's not here, that I'm speaking for. Everyone's very grateful for your work, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate your kind words. Like you said, we advocate for people in Washington, for the displaced, for in Washington, but the work that you do is just as important, because if they're not there and if they're not in their home, it takes away from everything that we do. So it's in our partnership that we can remain strong in our I guess our mission, both of our missions. And so I want to say thank you for that. Thank you for taking the time to speak to me about the work that you do, and I appreciate everything that you guys are doing as an organization. And thanks again.
Thank you.